Welcome back to Women Writers in Chinese History. In this lecture, we'll briefly review notable female images in Qing Dynasty novels, which reflect the rise of new gender perspectives, before we enter the next lecture to address major events that mark the turbulent beginnings of modern China. First, in previous lectures, we have stated that the Qing Dynasty witnessed the second high tides of women's literature. The standard bibliography on women's writings includes the names of more than 3,000 women from the Qing Dynasty. These women wrote mostly in the genres of poems, dramas, and plucking rhymes. Meanwhile, notable female images also emerged in literary writings of the Qing period, especially in the genre of vernacular novels. Early on, we have mentioned that women in general refrained from writing vernacular novels due to the genre's negative reputation in mainstream culture. However, despite criticisms from the conservative quarters, vernacular novels were widely read in Qing society, and some of them became phenomenally popular. Readers of vernacular novels include both men and women. Among female readers of the Qing Dynasty, two vernacular novels proved to be the most popular: The Dream of the Red Chamber, 红楼梦, and The Flowers in the Mirror, 镜花缘. Not coincidentally, both these novels heavily focus on the image of women and reflect new gender perspectives on the rise during the period. We have mentioned The Dream of the Red Chamber several times in previous lectures, and chances are you've heard this name in another class on Chinese culture or literature, since the book's position in Chinese literary history is just as canonic as Shakespeare's plays in English literature, or The Tale of Genji in Japanese literary history. The author of the novel is Cao Xueqin, who lived during the first half of the 18th century. Cao Xueqin came from a declined official family and spent most of his time in poverty and obscurity. Dream of the Red Chamber is likely semi-autobiographical, reflecting the author's memory of his younger days and the downfall of his family. The book was not published until the 1790s, decades after the author's death, and it immediately became a huge hit. As scholars have found out during the 20th century, likely the first 80 chapters of the published novel came from its original author Cao Xueqin, and the final 40 chapters were written by others. A very complex narrative work, Dream of the Red Chamber focuses on an aristocratic family of the surname Jia, which is a pun on the character Jia, which means fake or fictional. The protagonist of the novel is the household's young master Jia Baoyu. As the novel portrays, Jia Baoyu's main character trait is his aversion to the male world and worship of the female world. In his words, the world of men is as filthy as mud, whereas the world of women is as pure as water. Baoyu's attitude corresponds to what we have discussed as the philosophy of the heart-mind, 心学, since the male world represents social corruption. The female world, due to its separation from society at large, embodies moral and emotional purity. In the novel, the separation between these two worlds, male and female, or the real world and the ideal world, occurs through its main setting, a magnificent family garden called the Garden of Grand View, 大观园. There, as a young boy, likely still in his teens, Bao Yu lives in the company of his many female cousins and their maids. The girls' activities in the garden resemble those we have seen in family-based literary societies of the time, as they form a poetry society and compose linked verse to pass time. In this idyllic life, Bao Yu develops romantic feelings with his cousin Lin Daiyu, whose image mirrors that of a sickly, delicate beauty in the court of Qin. Daiyu is the best poet in the garden world, but she is extremely sensitive and has been suffering from a chronic disease, which seems to be tuberculosis. Bao Yu's family, on the other hand, has arranged his marriage with his other cousin Xue Baochai, who embodies all the womanly virtues according to Neo-Confucian orthodoxy. Baochai is highly educated and is also a very fine poet, yet she always puts other duties first and refrains from expressing her emotions. In the backdrop of the novel, the family itself has been suffering from moral and financial decline. Even though either Cao Xueqin didn't finish the novel or his original ending was lost, all signs in the narrative point to a tragic ending. In the ending we now have, all the female characters in the book suffer some tragic fate. Dai Yu dies of illness, whereas Bao Yu is tricked into marrying Baochai by the arrangement of his family. The family became implicated in a crime case, and its main members got banished. The current ending includes a happier conclusion, showing that the family fortune is eventually revived. However, saddened by the passing of the love of his heart, Dai Yu, Bao Yu leaves the family to become a Buddhist monk. Dream of the Red Chamber clearly manifests a sympathetic attitude towards women, although its perspective is still rather male-centered and stems from the tradition of the cult of Qin. We have mentioned that Dream of the Red Chamber now has a canonic position in Chinese literary history. It's been adapted as popular TV shows. The book is still widely read today and has generated a scholarly field of its own. Flowers in the Mirror, Jing Hua Yuan, is a novel that was once as popular as Dream of the Red Chamber among female readers of the 19th century. However, it is much less read today. In terms of its content, Flowers in the Mirror does not exemplify the type of literary realism for which Dream of the Red Chamber has been celebrated. Rather, it is a fantastic narrative set under the reign of China's only woman emperor, Wu Zetian. We have briefly mentioned this in our earlier lecture on Wu Zetian. As the story goes, Wu Zetian orders the flowers to bloom in the winter after she gets drunk. After they have obeyed the woman emperor's impulsive command, the 100 fairies in charge of the flowers are blamed by the Jade Emperor for violating the law of nature. Thus, they are banished to the mortal world and are reborn as talented girls in various countries. The main plot of the novel then traces the travel of a scholar who is disillusioned with the bureaucracy as he travels with his relatives who are merchants trading overseas. During their travel, they encounter the incarnations of the flower fairies and witness their extraordinary talents. At the end of the novel, which has 100 chapters, the 100 fairies gather at Empress Wu's court and participate in an examination to demonstrate their talents. The author of the novel is a male scholar named Li Ruzhen. Li Ruzhen had a broad knowledge and was dissatisfied with the stagnant bureaucratic system of the time. He spent almost 20 years writing Flowers in the Mirror to voice his questioning of the social system and to demonstrate his wide range of knowledge. The images of the talented women in his novel represent other possible worlds. The book's main title, Flowers in the Mirror, comes from a Buddhist metaphor for worldly illusions, whereas this title could suggest that the world within the novel is an illusion. it may simultaneously imply the illusory or limited nature of the given social system. Flowers in the Mirror manifests this implied social criticism both by reversing gender roles and by situating the Chinese system within an imagined international world through the plot of overseas travel. Somewhat similar to Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels, Flowers in the Mirror portrays various imagined overseas countries as fantastic places which follow social customs different from the Chinese world. The most famous episode from the novel is in fact about a kingdom ruled by women. As described in the novel, all the women in this kingdom dress as men, and they're the dominant gender. Men, in contrast, dress as women and have to bind their feet like Chinese women. Then, after the scholar and other merchants arrive at this kingdom of women, a good-looking member of the group gets kidnapped since the female king fancies him as a concubine. Then the novel portrays, in a somewhat absurd manner and with great details, how the merchant is forced to put on makeup and gets his feet bound, experiencing excruciating pain in the process. Eventually, the merchant is let go, but the episode strikes home the absurdity and inhumaneness of the custom of foot binding numerous Chinese women had been suffering through. Flowers in the Mirror was published in 1828. From popular novels of this kind and women's writings from the period, we can see the emergence of new gender perspectives and social visions in Qing China during the 18th and early 19th centuries. However, in general, these new tendencies stop at the criticism or questioning of the status quo without advocating for systematic revolutionary changes. Then, seismic events occurred around the mid-19th century in the context of foreign incursions and influences. We'll address these shifts in our next lecture video.